Before we jump in, I'd like to address a few people who got a little upset at the premise of my last video. In response to these people who think I'm like,
Das war ein Befehl! Der Angriffsstein, das war ein Befehl!
please allow me to retort. My primary goal in making these videos is not to disrupt your power fantasy.
Hey, you're just a little kid. Aren't you the cutest thing? Oh my goodness.
My main goal with this channel is just to entertain. I mean, 2 weeks ago I had just hit 100 subscribers. We're still a very small channel, just here to have some fun. It's not my prerogative to try to make anyone do anything. I may share why I think player standards are shrinking and video game companies are getting greedier.
What do you mean? I have $100.
Not anymore, you don't. Poof.
But at the end of the day, those are just my opinions. However, I do challenge you to ask yourself one question. If a game developer or publisher has you so wrapped around their finger, they know they can charge you full price for a complete game, not give you a complete game, and then count on you to still defend them against other people who are upset with them. Honestly, ask yourself,
do you feel in charge?
Now, if your favorite video game company never shows up in one of these videos, I think that's great, and I truly hope they never do. It's a win for the video game industry for everyone when a game releases in a playable state and full of passion from the team that made it. But if the idea of someone making a video recommending people be cautious with their pre-orders just absolutely rustles the ever-loving jimmies out of you, then congratulations, because you've officially made your way to the top of video games' most corporatized companies' target demographic list.
Or were you caught off guard by the launch of that
We
game?
knew we were going to have a lot of bumps, and that was a very difficult development on that game to get it where it was. And we were ready for, you know, a lot of those difficulties ended up on the screen.
Everyone else, thanks for letting me respond to those guys. On to the real intro. Pre-ordering video games used to mean reserving your copy at a store. It was an event, and you wanted to make sure they didn't run out before you made your way through the line of sweat and cosplay. In today's world of infinitely available digital pre-orders, pre-ordering now means playing it right at release time instead of waiting a couple of hours. Pre-order bonuses?
Give me my pants!
Hello everyone, this is your Kingerd speaking, and today we're going over 5 more reminders not to pre-order video games. On the previous video, I noticed 3 recurring types of comments. 1. Tons of encouragement and support. Seriously, thank you all so much. 2. Shared stories over disappointing releases. My condolences. And then finally, people's answers to this question. Is there a game this year or a developer that you would trust with a pre-order no matter what? Let me know in the comments. While it was tempting sometimes for me to say, you know what, I agree, I'd bet some pre-order money that X will be good, that dev never misses, instead it inspired me to start off strong in this video with a game release the world was so sure would be good because of trust in its developer. It broke records with 8 million pre-orders and $500 million in revenue before we could even play it. By all accounts, Cyberpunk 2077 should have been a slam dunk from CD Projekt Red, a developer recognized at the time for its award-winning, story-driven RPG games.
Giggity.
Although it's easy to say that there are developers out there who know how to put out a good game, let's not worry so much about their next release, I'm sure it'll be good. That was said about CD Projekt Red at one point too.
Just wanted to thank everyone for voting for CD Projekt Red at this year's Steam Awards. Being named Best Developer is truly an honor.
Anticipation for the beautifully detailed, futuristic, open-world RPG that was Cyberpunk 2077 had the gaming world by the huevos. Promises of impactful player choices, unparalleled, character customization, and a living, breathing city to interact with didn't even sound too good to be true at the time if it was coming from CD Projekt Red. The game won so many awards for its presentation alone, promotional material turned into showing off quotes of praise. Before release, you could pre-order the game in its standard edition at $60, which came with some exclusive artwork and stickers, or players could buy the collector's edition for an exclusive steelbook case and a collector's statue for... Wait a minute, is that?
That's a lot of money.
$250, the most expensive pre-order edition on our list so far.
That's what you call ironic.
And then launch day came. and Cyberpunk 2077 exploded into the mainstream for reasons people didn't expect. The game was such a disaster of a launch with how many bugs and glitches it had on the PS4 and Xbox One versions. PlayStation removed it from the PlayStation Store and offered refunds to consumers, while Xbox gave a disclaimer that you might have some issues if you try to play the game. The YouTube well of content was force-fed, hours upon hours of footage we couldn't believe came from a full-priced game made by such a renowned developer. Now, if you look past those console's performance issues, the game also lacked a number of features that were promised to be in the game before it came out, like intelligent AI.
We've greatly enhanced our crowd and community systems to create the most believable city in any open-world game to date. To create the most believable city in any open-world... The most believable city...
Police and morality mechanic. Choices that you made in the story didn't have nearly the effect on the narrative players had anticipated, and the gameplay itself really didn't encourage players to use a variety of strategies in combat. The general consensus from those of us who were able to play the game was that it was fine, but not great. Along with the bad press, investors of CD Projekt Red initiated multiple class action lawsuits claiming the developer had misled them regarding the state of the game. The developer issued both a written and video apology for that state of the game. While I add this written one to our developer wall of shame, look at his face. That is the face of a kid who got caught sticking his hand up a store mannequin's shirt. In all seriousness, good on CD Projekt Red for their response and promising to fix the game, but maybe don't put out unfinished products and charge $250 for them, and maybe you won't be in this position in the first place. But hey, good news. Cyberpunk 2077 DLC comes out this year, and you can pre-order now. I look at this DLC and CD Projekt Red like I look at cruises. When I was 18, I worked as a telemarketer. I made like $7 an hour to get screamed at and hung up on. Side note, telemarketers are people too, so if you don't like what they're selling, let them down politely, would ya? As a telemarketer, I sold trip packages that included excursions on a Carnival cruise ship. Right around this time, Carnival had some pretty bad publicity with a couple of its recent voyages. A common response I would naturally get from people on the phone was,
Have you ever had sex?
Well, yes, that too, but specifically about Carnival, they'd ask, why would I want to get on one of their cruise ships? My bosses at the time coached us up to respond with something along the lines of, well, that makes Carnival the safest ships to travel on now. After a disaster like that, there's no way they haven't increased all of their safety protocols and inspections of their ships. Cyberpunk 2077 and CD Projekt Red are the Carnival Cruise Line here. Do you hold off on giving them money because of their recent disaster, or are you in the camp that says they won't make the same mistake twice, here's my pre-order money? I can't make that decision for you, but what I do know is that waiting one more day to buy this DLC or a future release to find out if it's good first isn't going to kill you, and could end up saving you some money. Before we had Delivery Simulator Online, we had the Grand Theft Auto series. If Cyberpunk didn't convince you that any successful developer or publisher can release a steaming hot pile of disappointment, let's go back to 2021. GTA Trilogy The Definitive Edition, developed by Grove Street Games and published by Rockstar, was positioned to please both old-school fans of the GTA series and more recent ones. Grand Theft Auto 3, Grand Theft Auto Vice City, and Grand Theft Auto San Andreas all packaged in one game and remastered to improve on its visuals and gameplay. Rockstar had a track record of incredibly immersive games with colossal sales figures. I mean, GTA 5 was the highest grossing piece of entertainment of all time by 2018, somehow beating out the juggernaut Nickelodeon kart racers. Nah, maybe it had better luck the next year. I don't think anything that profitable came out in 2019 anyway. And while Red Dead Redemption 2 faced a little bit of criticism for too much realism, nobody can deny Rockstar made a beautiful game with a staggering attention to detail. With Rockstar behind the wheel updating games that people already loved, GTA Trilogy Definitive Edition was set to be a
victory
for pre-orders everywhere. If the responses to the Fallout 76 portion of the last video are any indication, there's gonna be a group of people out there that are probably already halfway through writing a comment that says, Rockstar didn't make this game, it was Grove Street. Okay, while Grove Street may have been the developer, whose name is on the box? Whose website was the game promoted on? Who marketed this game? Just because we like a publisher's previous games doesn't mean they're devoid of all accountability when their product flops. It was Bethesda CEO Todd Howard on stage at E3 promoting Fallout 76.
Todd Howard!
Thank you.
See, Todd Howard, using the we word when talking about building the game and the notorious Power Edition.
That we are going to build something really special. And we also know that all of you love our special editions, and we have an awesome collector's edition for you.
Are you sure about that?
So according to the Bethesda stands, he's lying about Bethesda's involvement in the game, or this is actually his evil twin, Hod Toward, sabotaging his brother's perfect name out of envy. If I can admit the Halo series is laying on its deathbed, you can admit your favorite game company put out a bad game. Miss me with that denial crap. What were we talking about again? Oh, right, Rockstar. They promoted their game to fans as a publisher, so they also get to be criticized when they release this.
Oh shit, here we go again.
GTA Trilogy Definitive Edition could be pre-ordered at $60. Future Kingerd here, I had to go back and insert this article that tries to give 5 reasons why people should have pre-ordered, but I think accidentally explains everything wrong with pre-order culture today. The first reason is just simply about trusting Rockstar. One of them is about expecting technical issues out of a modern video game. 2 of them are about instant gratification, and having to be one of the first people to play it, even by minutes. And then the last one is an actual bonus for pre-ordering. Needless to say, this article did not age well, but this guy gets it. This absolute prophet tried to warn everybody and only got 3 likes for his trouble. Here you go, King. You dropped this. In return for their undying loyalty to Rockstar, players received 3 remastered games that did deliver on the promise of updated visuals, but also slid in a slew of glitches, crashes, and an art style that a good chunk of the GTA fanbase felt was too much of a departure from the original games. Not to mention the release itself was botched, with the PlayStation version accidentally releasing early and the Windows version being unplayable for over a day after it was supposed to release.
What can I do anything right?
As far as the art style goes, I mean, it was shown in the trailers, so it's not like Rockstar is being dishonest, but you couldn't see every effect that art style had on the game just from the trailers alone. Some downgrades and technical glitches in this game, like others on this list, really have to make you stop and question. Did they even test this before letting people pay for it? Rockstar, after a response, or should I say a lack of response, did release some patches, but the damage had already been done, shaking player trust and tarnishing the reputation of this remastered trilogy. Thanks for the apology, I guess.
Here we go again.
It's even rumored that Rockstar might have stopped development on other remasters because of the issues with the GTA trilogy, including a remaster for the first Red Dead Redemption. Look what got announced after I recorded this.
Boo!
I'll just leave this here. If you crack open a dictionary and look up, in what dimension, in what universe, in what plane of existence would someone think this is ready for release, you'd see Battlefield 2042. Well, maybe Zeus. Zeus, would you have released this?
Ow!
Well, never mind. With Battlefield 2042, what made the Battlefield series special is what helped drive the hype. Large-scale battles, damage to the map over time, and satisfying gun and vehicle control. The action-packed trailer showed off some new abilities, paid homage to the legendary trick shot, the Rendezvous. It really helped sell the community aspect of the Battlefield player base. Although the previous releases had some controversies of their own, those controversies aside, I mean, we figured EA and DICE, they'd had so many broken launches with Battlefield, surely they learned their lesson, and surely they knew how to release a Battlefield game smoothly, right? This is the 3rd EA game to show up on this list. How do you think it went? Pre-order costs ranged from $60 to $120 depending on your console or edition, and the most expensive one came with access to all Year 1 DLC. Who knew that thinking people would keep playing this game throughout just its first year would be generous? Warning signs that the game was busted was present in the beta, but with a lot of players having already paid for the game and only 3 weeks until launch, it was clear launch day was not going to be pretty. Time for a successful Battlefield launch.
Not that one. Not that one. Drink plenty of water.
Game instability that made players crash faster than you could say. Visual and audio glitches that messed with what players were seeing and hearing. I mean, was this Battlefield or Hellblade? Broken gameplay mechanics like shots not registering when hitting an enemy in a game where your primary goal is to successfully shoot the enemy, or just spawning in places that were too close to the enemy or put you in a spot you couldn't move from. I wouldn't call EA's response to this an apology, but it was a response. And EA and DICE certainly went out of their way to avoid taking blame where they could. Oh my god, you players' expectations are just so brutal. What do you mean you expected a fully functioning game after you paid us $120 for a fully functioning game? Despite hardly containing an apology, it can still go on the apology board. Even with its updates over the following years, Battlefield 2042's reputation will forever go down as the AAA military shooter game that face-planted so hard at release, it saw a lower player count than Farming Simulator 22 and previous entries in its own franchise within only a couple months after release. Look, I can already hear the sound of keyboards clacking for people who are ready to type out, but what's the big deal? It got fixed. It didn't have to be fully bug-free at launch. Imagine if other industries got away with charging full price for something that didn't function. Concerts could regularly pull a Morgan Wallen and, depending on where you got your tickets, maybe give you a refund. Movie studios wouldn't even have to bother finishing their editing before putting their movies out in theaters. Hey, sports fans, we know you came to the Super Bowl wanting to see a game, and we're sorry, but we'll have to patch electricity into next season. Stay tuned to the NFL Twitter for our next roadmap, subject to change. And for the love of God, don't forget to stop by our gift shop. We update it daily. And video games could increase the prices of microtransactions while decreasing the amount of freedom you have to use that microtransaction. Oh, wait. Look, all I'm saying is an industry only gets as bad as consumers tolerate. If we all want the Triple Krabby Supreme, we gotta stop accepting the appetizer.
Run for your lives, everyone! It's the appetizer!
The more times games like Battlefield 2042 release to high pre-order sales figures, the more appetizers we can expect to see launch. If you agree and want to help spread the word, consider liking this video so more people will see it. Otherwise, if you're still not sold, don't worry. I still have more
Sights to show you.
Marketing for Redfall hooked players with a concept that was similar to what had been done before, but still sounded unique enough to stand out. Redfall's first trailer gave us all a glimpse of what Arcane was cooking next.
Then into my shaker, I'm gonna put some
looter shooter.
Then
open world.
Then in here, 2 shots of
vampires.
I hope it doesn't suck.
They ask you how you are, you just have to say that you're fine.
That's right. Redfall was set to be the game to let you go full Buffy on a
shit-sucking vampire. Oh, you wait till Mom finds out, buddy.
So long as you're not on PlayStation, that is. Spoiler alert, any PlayStation gamers who were upset they couldn't play Redfall probably got over it pretty quickly after its launch. Showing off the game's dark aesthetic and wild monster-slaying gameplay, developer Arcane Austin and publisher Bethesda Softworks, both under parent company ZeniMax Media, were considered to be a decently safe bet when it came to their new releases.
When Sire moves us to the new world, we're gonna need names. I would like my name to be Lila.
I think my name shall be Thieves. Because although we all do have them, mine are definitely the most prominent.
Me be called Floor because me is lying on floor.
And me, Rocket.
It really is good to have friends.
Between the two Arcane studios, there was a respectable catalog of single-player games and a loyal player base. And plenty of people were still pretending that Bethesda had nothing to do with Fallout 76. You didn't think I'd miss an opportunity to throw that one in, did you? For the non-believers, here's a receipt.
Fallout 76 is a big fall game, not under your personal this team here at Rockville's.
There was a lot of people here involved in it, yeah.
It was Austin. The Austin team were they the kind of...
The Austin studio, I mean, the whole studio in Austin's working on it. I think they've done a really incredible job, but there's a lot of people here in Rockville and in Dallas and in Montreal.
Everybody.
That was a lot of people.
But all we figured Arcane had to do was take what worked well in their previous games, add multiplayer to the mix, and they'd have a hit on their hands. Well, it turns out that taking game devs who are passionate about making single-player games, forcing them to grind out a multiplayer live service game they hate making so much they hope it gets cancelled, doesn't immediately equate to fat stacks.
You've domesticated them. You've done it. Congratulations.
Redfall has a distinction on this list.
A distinction.
It's the first game so far that would be available through a subscription service on launch day, in this case Game Pass, meaning you didn't have to pre-order it or even purchase it at full price to be able to play it on day one. So then why would you include it on this list, Kingerd? Because you could still pre-order it for well above the price of the standard edition. Well, after Redfall had already been in development for 2 years, ZeniMax was acquired by some small-time company, I can't remember their name.
And the dark depths of the oceans.
Now that Microsoft and Xbox owned the parent company for Arcane, Redfall was set to be released on the world's most powerful console, the Xbox Series X, and I guess the Series S.
Meep.
Couple that with an extra year in the oven through a release delay, players had plenty of reasons to expect a solid product at launch.
Ooh. Ooh, dinner time. Oh! Sucking! Oh! God!
The game was a complete mess. The lack of animations, both in cutscenes and gameplay, made immersion into the world and story almost impossible. Brain-dead and easy-to-exploit enemy AI made the game downright boring to play and missing any challenge. We wanted Sadako, but instead we got Tabitha.
Get up, you little ugly. That's all.
And instead of including the expected 60 frames per second performance mode, Redfall only shipped with a max of 30 frames per second. Now, was the switch from 60 FPS to 30 FPS right before launch after racking up pre-order money in the name of Arcane them being disingenuous or just incapable? I have no idea. I'm going to assume the second one since they did announce this before release. Either way, the sticker put on the box of Redfall that talks about the frames per second gives us a nice visual representation of AAA games and their failures to include expected features by launch day. Take a look at any gameplay of Redfall for more than 15 seconds and tell me if that looks like a $100 video game to you. Who approved this game for release? Was it you, Phil Spencer? We want answers! Wait, Phil Spencer actually did an interview giving a pretty good apology for the state of Redfall?
This game was significantly below our internal metrics in terms of where it actually reviewed. But that's not on anybody but us. Like, we have to own that.
While we appreciate the promise to make the game better, Phil, there's only one problem.
If promises were crackers, my daughter would be fat.
And Phil also kind of implied that Arcane was lacking vision while they were developing Redfall. While it's not a written apology, we'll add it with the others. If information from anonymous sources within Arcane Austin is accurate, Redfall seems to be a victim of the tug-of-war that can happen between a game's developer and publisher or parent company during its development cycle. Now, the idea of publisher bad is not a one-size-fits-all philosophy. Sometimes it's not greed from the publisher or unrealistic deadlines being forced on game devs as to why a game like Redfall releases the way it does. I'm not saying those weren't present with Redfall, but according to those anonymous sources, the big problems were ZeniMax wanting Arcane to work on a type of game that they had no experience and no passion to do, leading to a revolving door of staff and creative warfare. Despite the issues behind closed doors, people from Arcane, Arcane Austin, Bethesda, Xbox, Microsoft promoted Redfall as a game that you should spend your money on. Players shouldn't have to rely on anonymous interviews after a game's launch to get honesty from people working in the video game industry. I'm not saying disclose every argument you've ever had over the gnomes' hats being green or red at the next E3 conference. I'm just saying don't lie.
Redfall is a story-driven shooter at its heart.
Every inch of our open world is carefully handcrafted and packed with environmental storytelling. Every inch of our open world is carefully handcrafted. Every inch of our open world is carefully handcrafted.
When Bethesda tells us they're delaying Redfall so that we get the best, most polished version of it, and Starfield, it can't look like this when it releases. So until the marketing for a video game becomes trustworthy again, I would take all promotional material for an upcoming game with a grain of salt, no matter which studio is the one presenting it. In true Gollum fashion, I honestly debated with myself if I should even include this game on this list. So far, every game we've covered has been something that was hotly anticipated, and Gollum was more like a, oh, Jesus, what is that? Is that his character model? The hype for Gollum was more like a mildly curious
smoldering fire.
I really couldn't even answer my own question of who was excited for this game. But then it dawned on me that Gollum has something that the other games on this list so far have not. In a list full of AAA studios with high development budgets for the most part, with the exception of No Man's Sky, but it got financial backing from Sony for publishing prior to its release. Gollum is another game to come from a lesser-known company, but without its own daddy warbucks to help out with financing. We can't really blame this one on corporatization, fellas.
Merchandising! Merchandising!
Also, this one's for a couple of people in the comments of the last video who didn't like that I was only naming Western companies. CD Projekt Red was Polish, Daedalic is German, so here you go. See, now it ain't just us gun-toting McDonald's eating freedom-loving Americans, I'll tell you what. Future editor Kingerd here. Of course, after I do that bit, I learned that, depending on your definition, Germany and Poland can be considered Western countries. If I'm still wrong about that even after this correction, I'm sorry, but I guess that's why this is a gaming channel, not a world history channel.
I award you no points, and may God have mercy on your soul.
The American school system didn't exactly teach me that between the lessons on Rosa Parks and the Pythagorean theorem. So fine, instead, here's 3 words for you. Pokemon Scarlet and Violet. There, let's move on. I mean, don't get me wrong, I'm happy that Daedalic Entertainment got the opportunity of a lifetime to develop a game within the universe of the nerd gospel itself, The Lord of the Rings.
I prefer the real.
Lord of the Rings.
I said the real.
Lord of the Rings.
Perfection.
And don't even come at me saying, it's Middle-earth, not Lord of the Rings. I'm a fan too. I understand that Middle-earth is more than just the Lord of the Rings story. But Lord of the Rings is, it's in the title, so GG's. When I first saw the announcement trailer, I assumed it would be a story game similar to the likes of maybe something Supermassive would put out, just on a smaller budget. Daedalic said that you would get to make choices as either Gollum or Smeagol, so I figured an emphasis on narrative would be a perfect fit for a Gollum video game. I mean, what else would you do in a Gollum game? Chase bugs? But lo and behold, Daedalic released some gameplay footage that made it clear the game was more of a stealth and platformer game that featured cameos from well-known characters. For those too excited for the opposite of a power fantasy, could pre-order Gollum for $60. If you did, you got some pre-order bonuses called emotes. Or for an extra $10, you could get the Precious edition for some artwork and an Elvish language option. I mean, that's neat fan service on the Elvish thing, I'll give them that, but it's locked behind a pre-order paywall, so those brownie points from me go straight down the well of Moria. Well, I hope the emotes in a language most people can't understand were enough to justify purchasing this thing during the hype phase instead of, just playing another Lord of the Rings game until Gollum came out.
The business isn't of yours when I do with my own thing.
I am not trying to rob you. I'm trying to help you.
Gollum released, and players got a buggy, glitchy, broken game eager for its contribution to the game fodder pile.
How many gigs was it? Man, how? I haven't even started the game. How did I already get a crash?
Not only were the technical issues a notable problem, but even when it did work as intended, it didn't take long for people to realize Gollum was just a bad game. A stealth game with busted stealth mechanics, and a platformer with busted collision detection. Not even the Lord of the Rings IP could save this one.
But wait! There's more!
Fetch quests, a way too long prison simulation segment, and all around uninteresting level design gave people very little reason to play for more than the first couple of hours. While it's not exactly an earth-shattering event for a bad game to be released, what I think helped propel Gollum into the infamy was the timing. This was not long after our previous entry, Redfall, and people were finally looking at all these new botched releases like the Gremlin cocoons they were.
Well, they're the Mogwai, I guess. Except for Gizmo.
Now, it does hurt my soul to see a lesser-known developer on this list, and even more so the repercussions the negative reception had to their company, but at the end of the day, this is a video about protecting players from having to see another one of these added onto this board. The whole point I've been trying to make is that when someone develops a bad product, people shouldn't buy it. And on a large scale, that's what happened with Gollum and Daedalic. I mean, let's face it, if you took this exact game, didn't attach Lord of the Rings name to it whatsoever, how many people really would have bought it? So if there's one thing I think Gollum can contribute to this list, it's that be careful, even your favorite IPs can release some crap products. And boy, mine sure have.
Oh no, my hairless twin got out! Hello, family. Let's eat all the garbage we want.
Now, you might be saying, Kingerd, I see all this doom and gloom, but what am I supposed to do with this information? Well, like I said in the intro to the intro, I'm not here to tell anybody what to do or how to do it. But if game developers and publishers can count on our money before they even give us a product, regardless of how that product ships, we can't be surprised if this list keeps getting longer. If you made it this far, thank you so much for watching, and I hope that you might consider subscribing to see some more content. I hope to only get better at entertaining and informing from here, and I'd love to have you along for the ride. Kingerd out.